Okay. Welcome everyone to our very first Unconversation here inside the Self Hospitality Collective. This is not your normal podcast. This is not an interview. I want to make sure everyone who's watching this, whether you're watching it live or the recording, get comfortable. For us, whoever's here right now, it's Friday afternoon. The holidays are upon us. I was talking to my buddy Otto before about, you know what? I really want this to feel like we're together having a nice conversation. And if we were together, we would be having a drink. So cheers, Otto. Cheers to
There's
everyone
my
who's watching
friend.
this. I just want everyone to be comfortable. And because this is not your normal kind of podcast or anything like that, we're going to do something special right now. And if you've been to any of our events so far, you know what we're about to do. And Otto's very familiar with a drop in. So we're going to just drop into this moment, drop into this time, and make this just a special space, a sanctuary, if you will. So everyone who's watching, just get comfortable. If you can, feet flat on the floor, your back nice and straight, and take a big, nourishing breath. Just fill in, fill up. And then exhale it out. Oof. Let's take one more nice, big, deep breath. Really just feel how good that feels. And then as you exhale, oof, you could gently close your eyes as you exhale it all out. Gently let your breathing return to a normal rhythm. Just enjoy a few moments of peace, presence. You could scan down your body head to toe, just checking in with yourself, letting any stress or tension or anxiety just melt away as you scan down, scan your head, your face, all the little muscles around your eyes, let them go. Your jaw, neck and shoulders relaxed, entire upper body relaxed, down to your hips, legs, knees, all the way down to your feet, heels, calves, ankles, your entire body, head to toe, relaxed. There's nowhere else to be, nothing else to do. Just enjoy some presence, dropping into this space as if we were all together right now. Just having a lovely conversation amongst friends. I'd like you to just bring some appreciation into your heart, whatever you could feel gratitude for, whatever brings that smile to your face. Maybe it's a specific person or a pet, or just the feeling of breath in your body. Appreciation for this moment to gather in community as we create a space of welcoming vulnerability and honesty and openness. And I'd like you all, and Otto particularly, to set an intention for this beautiful conversation and be selfish. What do you want to get out of it? Just feel that in your heart. And with that, let's take one more nice big deep breath together. And I want you to hold it at the top. Now, sip in a little bit more of that healthy, fresh energy, clean oxygen. Hold it for a moment. Feel the sensations, the vibrations, and then you could let it all go. Oof, oof, oof. Let it all go. All that stuck stale air down at the bottom. Don't be so quick to come back here. Take your time. Get back into your body. Get back into the space. You gently open your eyes whenever you feel comfortable. Mm. We're in no rush here. We're in no rush in life. Now, I would like to just briefly introduce our esteemed guest today, who I am just so excited to have this opportunity to chat with. Otto Abad, who I will be calling Tito because he's Tito to me. Tito and I met several years ago, and we'll probably talk more about that exact story, I'm sure. But we've become great friends. We've worked together. I've come to his company and spoke in front of his leaders, and we've spent a lot of time personally together. And I consider him a really amazing friend, a special person in my life. And and it's an honor to just have this space where he's willing to be vulnerable and share with all of us and with me because I don't want to tell you his intentions. I'll share my intentions that I was thinking when we were just doing that drop in, and my intentions were to just bring some peace to the world, maybe to one person who could benefit from hearing that they're not alone, that we all go through struggles, no matter what level of an organization you're at. And on top of not just feeling peace now, but potentially shaving off a little bit of suffering too, realizing that maybe you don't have to keep repeating the same mistakes, or you could learn from them a bit quicker and you could feel peace more quickly instead of having to feel like you need to earn it or suffer your way through it. So that's what I'm hoping to also share. I plan on being vulnerable as well. This isn't a one-way street. And without further ado, welcome, Otto. It's just a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Mike. I'm looking forward to this, man. It feels really pressureless. I love the idea of unconversation. I don't feel any pressure, and I guess it's just me and you talking. I love the way that you framed that for me. That's always been easy.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because I do think a lot of this is going to be cultivating the environment where we both feel comfortable to share, even if we have a live audience here, and who knows who's going to be watching this. It's just being human and sharing that no one's perfect, and that's actually what makes us human, and that's what brings us closer together. I do want to. I'm looking at myself too much, and I want to look at you, so I just want to see if I could stop.
Hey, but you can't make it to where all I can see is me. That won't be cool either.
It doesn't do. I think because I had to spotlight myself for the recording, but I'll do my best to not look at myself, which I think everyone who's on Zoom has that issue. Um, but Otto, Tito, you've been at the top rung. You have been at the bottom in terms of like low point in your life. You have a huge heart. You're incredibly driven. I know you're the provider. You wear that badge on your sleeve, to say the least. This isn't about, your career path, or I don't want it to be anything like that. I want to dive right into what we're here to talk about. So if you could share what was the moment of truth in your life where it was basically the straw, the last straw, the straw on the camel's back, when you realized something had to change in your life.
Um, it's really odd because I had no idea how miserable I was. Even though I was telling everybody, not well, telling the people closest to me that I was miserable and telling I went so far as to tell them that I was suicidal, that I was ready to end it all. But and it still wasn't clicking for me. I mean that I know how crazy that sounds. I hear how crazy it sounds when I say it out loud, but Jerry reminded me of it. The other Jerry's gentleman that works with me, he's actually the COO of my company. Um, he commented to me the other day. He said, I don't understand. It's probably as stressful right now as it's ever been. We've got as much going on right now as we ever have. I feel like it's worse than it was back in 19 and 20, as far as we've just got a lot of moving parts and a lot of big jobs, and which means a lot of money out for a while before we're able to collect it. And anyway, the holidays are always a stressful time of year. But he said you're handling it completely differently. You're not the same guy at all that you were 5 or 6 years ago. And And I thought that was normal back then. Being that miserable just seemed like normal life to me. I almost wore it as a badge of honor. I think I probably would say stuff like that to the people closest to me without any humility about it and never willing to actually get into how I feel, just making sure that they knew that I was so busy and there was so much stress on my back, that I wore that like a badge of honor. Like I was proud of the fact that I was the busiest guy that I knew, that I had the more responsibility than anyone I knew. It's like that's what I had been, it's what I thought I had been striving for um, my whole life. As silly as that sounds. And so, yeah, I didn't have any idea that I needed things to change until you convinced me to put that phone down on that boat. Um, I guess.
That's you know talking about driving off a bridge, because you and I have talked about this a lot, and talking to other people about that wasn't enough, but
No.
but a chance encounter was. But it's not, and we'll share that story. But you were open. You were open. There had to be something in you that was open to, a different way of being, where you were saying the status quo isn't working, and this is not to put down therapy or medication or anything, but those for you either weren't working or they stopped being effective. There was a part of you that was ready.
I I was, yeah, you're correct. There were lots of opportunities that had I taken them or had I been present enough to recognize them, really could have pressed me, you know, into the next stage of my life. Um, but I wasn't, I was in therapy and really liked the therapist that I was with at the time, but I wasn't completely vulnerable um, with him. His name was Mike too. That's kind of crazy. One of the first books you ever gave me was the Esther Hicks book, something Abraham, and funny enough, Cody Allen had probably he had recognized some of that stuff in me and given me that book years earlier, and I thought he was trying to convert me to church, and so I thanked him for it and put it on my shelf and never opened it. Um, uh,
That's asking it is given,
yeah,
which I
Abraham
think
Hicks, yeah.
I think that that's a great piece of advice. It's what you're putting out there is what you're getting back. You were on some level putting out some sort of vibration or energy that was, I'm ready for something new. And the reason I'm staying on this, because I think this is a lot of people are feeling stressed and feeling depressed and maybe feeling suicidal. But how do you get them to realize that that's telling them something? And maybe we don't have the answer, but it's definitely worth talking about.
I've heard you. I mean, spent a lot of time on it in the work that we did together. I've heard you in several different arenas talk about it that way. That that stress that you feel, the anxiety that you feel, the uneasiness, the uncomfortable um, feelings that you have are actually just an alarm. I mean, it's telling you, it's informing you that you need to change things. And for some of us, it's got to get just so bad before we can recognize it. But at this point in my life, I'm able to appreciate those feelings and the ability to recognize that I'm not where I want to be mentally. I'm not being present enough with my family. I used to get so upset with my wife when she would criticize me for checking my phone or being zoned out. I can just remember how angry that made me, and the thought process of, do you have any idea of what I'm going through? Do you have any idea how much stress there is? That would be my response, whether I said it out loud or just in my head. And now I'm so grateful for that, because that trigger now, largely in part to the work we did together and the things that I've been exposed to, the work I've done on myself and for myself. Now it's a really quick trigger, and it brings me right back into the present moment. Allows me my habit now, if I hear something like that, is to think of a couple of things that I'm really grateful for, whether it's my daughter or my dogs or my cows or uh, whatever it is, and get put myself into a mode of appreciation, bring myself back into the present moment, and appreciate the fact that I'm there with my loved ones. Try to enjoy it more.
So that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really practical tip. It's just find something to be grateful for. Every time we drop in, we feel some gratitude. And it's just to start getting more comfortable leaning towards gratitude as opposed to leaning towards complaining or finding the negative in something. And the more you do that, it gets easier. It's just like a muscle that we develop. Um, in your life, in the work, um, there had to have been like a major belief that you stopped believing or something that you had to unlearn that you had carried for a long time. And you might still be unlearning this. I know it's almost been my exclusive journey of what I've had to unlearn. But what would you say that is for you based on how you grew up, what you were exposed to, how you lived your life until you started treating yourself with a little more kindness?
Uh, I got to the point where I felt like I was enough. I had a pretty rough relationship with my parents, both of them. I spent 30 years where I didn't speak to my father, 20 that I hadn't spoken. When you and I started our work together, when I met you on that boat, I hadn't spoken to my father in 30 years. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 20. Um, a lot of my drive came from uh, came from my overwhelming need to prove myself good enough. I was also really overweight all my life, from as young as I can remember. Uh, so, there were just lots of factors that had always made me feel less than and drove me to try to prove myself as worthy. That's something that I've realized in the last 5 or 6 years. And thankfully, um, I have a great relationship with my mom now, and was able to reconcile with my father before he passed away. So everything worked out exactly like it was supposed to.
Yeah, and the timing with that was also, it's just when you really look back and you see how things line up, it's undeniable that the universe is trying to send us signs or help us out when we get out of our own way. I mean, that's what I've noticed, and I think you and I are very similar with the worthiness issue. And mine stems from my dad leaving, kind of moving across the country when I was around 7, and funnily enough, that's when I kind of stopped writing and I started, getting really obsessed about making money and proving myself. And to this day, it's still a process of catching that and unwinding that. And when did you just kind of realize, like, or get fed up with talking negatively to yourself or tell, because really at the end of the day, that's what it is. Everyone else could love you and tell you you're amazing, but you're not feeling that inside. So what was the shift? And not just the work that we did, but was it meditation? Was it practicing gratitude? Was it spending more time with yourself? Like for you personally, where did that self-love and self-kindness and self-hospitality generate for you?
Um, it was those first. I really, I think you would agree. It just happened so fast for me once we did start working together. Um, when I say I was in a low place at that time, man, I had bought the business. Um, I had bought out my last partner at the end of 18, and made a lot of mistakes when in agreeing to that deal. I was hell bent on buying my own company, didn't look at all into the details, and made a lot of silly decisions during that process. that I wasn't sure that, put myself in a hole that it seemed impossible to dig out of. My son was really suffering from lots of different issues, depression and drug abuse, and had act. I mean, he had hit rock bottom, and then fought his way out of it, but then joined the Marine Corps, and all of a sudden, our baby boy was gone, and we had, when you and he had just left the week before I met you, and we couldn't get a hold of our baby boy at all. There's no communication whatsoever, and that was going to be the case for the next 3 months. My wife was really upset about that. Like that was overwhelming. So that was, back then, a guy that was completely focused on himself and his misery was that just added to my stress level. Her being upset all the time just seemed like another, instead of me wanting to help her through it and try to set an example at that point in my life. I just looked at that as another burden to bear. So um there was just so much, and the meditation practice, the journaling, the idea that um finding a way to fill my own cup so that I had something to give others, being okay, not being selfish, but actually being a selfless act. All of those ideas that you introduced me to, just immediately started changing my life. And I mean, literally, people were telling me I was unrecognizable within 2 or 3 weeks. The meditation was a big deal. I'm sure you found it funny back then and probably still do get a chuckle. I mean, I can remember just telling you, you told me to try to do 30 seconds. I can't do 2 seconds without, I mean, it was,
And I love that you share that because it really prevents people from even trying it and realizing that you're not supposed to be good at something you've never tried before. It's your discipline with that too shows in every aspect of your life and how you've gotten so much fitter and you're surfing now and you're doing all these things because you're realizing it starts with you. Like you can't wait to get in shape to go to the gym. You have to go to the gym and then start getting in shape. It's like same thing with meditation. It seems to me that what you're sharing is a pretty traumatic childhood without, we haven't gone into too much details, but from what I know, there's a lot there that built up that feeling of not being good enough and needing to prove it. And then at a certain point, it's like the pressure of the world it's produced like a diamond. Like you needed that pressure to wake up. Like I always say, you need to be shaken to awaken. And there was a switch where you're just like, I'm not, it doesn't work feeling terrible about myself or feeling unworthy. It brings more unworthiness.
I,
Yeah.
I know it seems like an antidote, and I know that you and I have talked about it, in a few different settings. But I know we're going to inevitably get to it today. But when you asked me to, or how should I put it? You dared me to put that phone down.
Well, you could share it. You could share it. Share
So
it.
we were in paradise. We were in Costa Rica in this coastal swamp on a tour with this amazing old native man that would just take this little rickety boat, that probably sat 30 people. It was peak COVID at the time, so there were probably only 6 or 8 of us on that boat. You and Elisa, me and Brandy and Brooklyn, our daughter, and my best friend Frank and his wife. I'm pretty sure that was the entire um, amount of people on that boat. Anyway, this guy takes us out into the middle of this mangrove swamp, and then through the mangrove swamp into like a jungle, and he gets out and starts hollering, and all these monkeys just start coming out of the trees, and he's got a bunch of limes, that he's cut up in the boat and he's handing to everybody, and the monkeys are crawling all over my daughter, all over me, all over everybody in the boat, and we're playing with them. They're taking the limes and they're scrubbing themselves with it, and my daughter was just amazed, like having a blast. I'm sure to some people that sounds like a creepy experience. It was not at all. It was really amazing. But I had a customer who was having trouble with the fryer, and I couldn't get, I was having trouble finding somebody that would go out and take care of their fryer. And I was on my phone, either talking to people or texting people, trying to get the and I missed most of that experience. While the monkeys were on the boat, I was kind of zoned out. I did, I did get a couple of pictures, and I could still kick myself in the ass for not really taking in. I look at the pictures and you can see Brooklyn's face just lit up. Everybody on the boat was just lit up. And anyway, but on the way back, we're going through, I mean, the little bayou or waterway that we were going down in this boat with this amazing old man and, some of the closest people to me in my life. And I was still trying to get the fryer figured out. And that's when you said, "Hey man, I bet you can't put that phone down for the rest of this little boat ride." And I remember how angry I was at you. And I still remember what I had in my head to say. Like I was really going to say, you see these four people behind me. The only reason any of them are here is this damn phone and me taking care of these problems. I mean, that's what I wanted to say to you. And right before I tried to throw you off the boat, and then somehow I caught myself. I don't know what I think it was probably your presence and your energy. I looked at you with every intention of saying all that and said yes. And I closed my phone and I sat it down, and I realized that this little waterway, literally, it reminded me, if anybody's ever been to Disney World in Orlando, the Jungle Book tour I mean, that's how beautiful it was, but it wasn't fake. It was nature. And it was just that gorgeous. And in that moment, I really do remember thinking, I'd have missed all of this. Like, had that guy not said that to me, I wouldn't take this in. I'll probably never get this opportunity again as long as I live. And I can still remember how overwhelming that was. Still just thought you were some random guy with his beautiful wife with him. And and then we got off that boat and you handed me a card and said, I'm a personal freedom coach, and I think I could help you a lot. Um, and I knew right then and there that you'd be a part of my life for the rest of my life. Um, that's all we said. You gave me your card. I said I'll reach out to you when we get home, and I did. Thank goodness. And yeah, man, it's crazy. I don't believe that opportunity was unique. And I wish I could tell you that I know what was different that allowed me to be present enough to recognize that opportunity. I don't think, maybe it was just I was at my boiling point, and I guess it was at a Y. But my life was going to go one of two ways at that point, and the other way probably would have ended in tragedy. Um, but gosh damn, I'm glad it didn't.
Me too, man. Oh, that really, I love hearing you share that story. I mean, it really means so much to me. And I don't know if you know the other side of that story, which is, and Elise has told me this, when she heard me say that to you, she literally internally goes, Mike's about to get punched. And when I think back on that, it was a moment that changed my life just as much as yours. And I don't know where that came from. We both were attracting each other into our lives. And I mean, how many people have gotten more joy out of their life just from what you've gone through. I mean, and your willingness to share your story like this. And I don't think you realize that, and I've never shared this with you and throughout all of our conversations, but I think you know that we were supposed to be on the monkey boat tour the day before, and Elisa got sick, or we postponed it. It was something that we just had to postpone it a day. It was my birthday gift. It was like right around my birthday, early April. And just before that, it was a couple days before, like two or 3 days before, and I was living in Costa Rica during COVID for 3 months. Just finished a group coaching program with Ryan, who's on here. Actually, Ryan was part of that group. And afterwards, I was just thinking, everyone in that group had an amazing transformation. And I think for me, it was like, okay, I was coaching for long enough that I just said, I want to have a bigger ripple effect. So 3 days before we met, I put the intention out that I want to work with leaders who have bigger impact. I'm going to increase my pricing. I'm going to completely target leaders. And I hadn't done really anything in terms of like setting that up aside from putting the intention out there. And I met you 3 days later, and you've helped me focus on the hospitality industry, which is my industry that I've always been in. And I never even realized that. It took you to introduce me to so many people in this industry. Um, so it really like it's just such a fucking awesome story of the universe always having everyone's back. Like it's a win-win-win. You know, I didn't plan on saying that to you. I don't know where that came from. And look at us, like look at this now, almost 5 years later, still, just the ripple effects continue. And it's personal too. Like I feel amazing just knowing you and talking to you about this stuff. And I know we're both still in the work. We're none of us are there. It's not like, oh, I've meditated for X number of hours. Here's my certificate. It's a never ending, always peeling onion. And I think to have people like each other in each other's lives, and hopefully that's what we're doing here with this community, is it's just we're in it together. We're in this journey of discovering joy, discovering who we really are, discovering what alignment really means. I had an epiphany this morning. I was on the beach with Leela, and it was just, I've always said that alignment is elusive because we always have new desires and we have to balance that with contentment. And really, that's like the work is being content in the present moment while we always want more. We're always going to want more, something new, something different, something better. But then I realized that that's not what alignment really is. Alignment is feeling amazing. It's your connection with yourself, with your source, with you call it God, the universe, whatever you feel when you practice appreciation, when you meditate. And we are on that just never-ending journey of more of that, more of that joy. So we could bring that joy into the world because I know you want to be that beacon of light for the people in your life. You don't want to be someone who's emitting stress and just everyone has to walk on eggshells around you. You want to be an uplifter. And that really takes caring about yourself. Like, would you agree with that? Like as like a number one thing?
Wholeheartedly, man. A couple of things that came to mind while you were talking. Number one, I've always been a people pleaser. I always wanted to, but the way that I looked at that was just taking on all their burdens and fixing all their that was what I thought I could do was fix everybody's problems around me, and I could work hard enough to where I could do stuff for people, or that that has I mean that sounds like I'm bragging or I don't know, but it wasn't because I was emitting misery. But if you shared yours with me, I'd try to tell you how to fix it, as if that makes sense. And so, you've said a lot of times, including today, that I introduced you to all these people. And um, but what happened was the work we did had such an immediate and such a profound change in me and in the energy, vibrations, whatever the hell you want to call it, that I was putting out into the world that immediately. Like there was a buying group conference. So we were in Costa Rica in April. I think you and I started working together somewhere around early May. We had our buying group conference. There was like a drop in the COVID numbers that first summer of 2020, and the buying group just kind of scrambled and put together a conference in
2021, I think.
oh no, 2020. We went the summer of 2020 when there was that big drop in the COVID numbers. They got brave.
Oh yeah, it was
They were one of the
2020.
only groups to do it, and it was on the west coast of Florida, Marco Island, the JW Marriott and Marco Island. They put that together, but by the mid-June. So you and I had been working together 4 to 6 weeks, and I mean countless people, like literally a couple of dozen people that I had known for years, like, what's going on with you? Like you've never given me a hug before. You've never paid you've never cared what I had to say. You were yeah, I mean literally those are the type of comments that I was getting from people that I thought liked me before.
So, so, so
What do you
you know what? It's almost like the lower you go in terms of like getting to the bottom, getting to the lowest point. It's really like the closer you are to being ready for this because you were so ready. That's why you had such a dramatic shift. You were so miserable. You were so unhappy. Your soul was begging you to be more joyful. And I think that that's kind of a cool message too, that it's like the worse you feel, the closer you are to getting it, to like to clicking over to, okay, this shit just isn't working. Like how if no one's looking, how do you treat yourself now and compare that to, 5 years ago?
the biggest gift that our work together and meditation specifically has given me is to recognize when I'm making up a nightmare instead of a fairy tale. Now I'll explain that. We're never going to be able to stop our thoughts, right? We never are. But what I feel like my meditation practice gives me is the ability to recognize when my thoughts are taking me to a place I don't want to be. And I don't know if you said it to me or if I heard it in an Alan Watts video or in a um, uh, Wayne Dyer. I don't remember who it was that planted that concept in my head. But if we're making up stories anyway about the future, whatever you're telling yourself about the future, and what's going to happen, whatever you're worried about, you're making up a story. Well, if you're going to make up a story, would you consciously choose the nightmare, or would you consciously choose the fairy tale? Like, what if everything works out perfectly? Instead, I mean, our natural tendency is to always, or my natural tendency was always to focus on the worst case scenario.
I
To so
think that is all of our natural tendencies until you realize what's doing that. It's a survival mechanism,
Yeah.
and
And
you're
so
always
I
going to
can
be
prepare
unhappy.
myself. Yeah, so I can prepare myself to hedge that off. It's just so silly. And so now really I'll catch myself making up a story about the future with every one of the worst possible outcomes for, every time there's a why, things going the wrong way. And I'll recognize that and consciously reverse it to the fairy tale. And I'm really appreciative of the ability that work on myself has given me to more quickly recognize that my thoughts are taking me to a place I don't want to be and reverse that trend. That there's no greater gift that meditation has given me than that one thing. To just reckon these are just my thoughts. I was actually listening to an Alan Watts recording this morning. He was talking about that very thing. Like if you're having a conversation with yourself, who's talking? And if you believe it's you that's talking, well, then who's listening? You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah,
Fascinating thoughts.
that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's really inspiring too, because you can't be good at something you don't practice. We're so good at practicing distraction that meditation gives us the power of focus, and then you could focus your attention on what you want more of. Then you learn about the law of attraction and how powerful our words and our thoughts are, and you stop nightmaring and you start daydreaming and you really start to have more fun. I really feel like that's what this work does. It shows you that life is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be fun first, not after you've earned it, which comes from unworthiness and feeling all the lack and the scarcity. Would you agree with that?
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Not agree more.
So if you we're going to wrap up and open up to questions, but one piece of like advice for your younger self that you've had some hard-earned wisdom. You have amazing wisdom, but you've earned it. I mean, if it's your younger self, or you could look at it as someone out there who's going through a tough time, what would you want to share?
I'm worthy. I'm worthy of loving myself. That I'm good enough. Yeah, that's it, man. That was the most difficult lesson I ever learned.
Are you still learning it?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I know it intrinsically now, but I absolutely lose sight of it from time to time. Um,
Same.
yeah,
That's why I ask. Because if
yeah.
you figured it out, I want to know what you've done.
No, no, you and I had some really deep conversation sitting on the beach a couple of weeks ago there in Costa Rica, and talked about this very thing. Yeah, I mean, that's something I absolutely want anybody that listens to this, to know that there's sure as hell no end point. There's no finish line on taking care of yourself. There's no finish line on loving yourself and feeling worthy of it and all of that. I mean, I fail every day. I fail others, I fail myself, I fail, but I'm able to recover. I'm able to turn it around and to realize, it is all just a game. We are just playing roles, and nobody's ever going to be harder on you than you're going to be on yourself. Nowhere. Um, anyway, yeah.
Really, really beautiful. We'll end on that note. And I think one of the most powerful things you said was you were talking about the monkey boat tour, but it's life. You said I'd have missed all of this. And I think that goes for life. How much joy, how much presence, how much love do you miss when you're not taking care of yourself, when you're not putting yourself first? So I want to thank you. We're gonna close down our public recording.